This week we are heading up towards International Day of People with a Disability. That is on Wednesday, and you'll hear lots about the importance of inclusivity and what it means to and in the real world. I think we can all relate to a time where we've felt excluded. Perhaps it can feel heavy, it can feel isolating. So let's get mind-wise about inclusion with psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens with me now. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
When we talk about inclusion, why does it matter for everyone, not just people in obvious groups, perhaps?
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? That if you're feeling like you're on the outer or in and out group, that it's really important that we talk about inclusion. But the way I like to think about it is we're all missing out if we're excluding people, and whether we're doing that intentionally or not, but we miss that opportunity to connect with others. We know people are more successful when we all pitch in together. So we know generally that when inclusion is strong, teams get better ideas, we make better decisions, and wellbeing benefits all of us.
You use the word we a lot there. What are some of the benefits you see when we see individuals, teams or communities genuinely widen the circle of we?
Yeah, I do like to think of it that way, because that's a little reminder for me, because I think sometimes exclusion of others happens without us intending to. So I like to think about it through the lens of we as well, so that we can include more people. And we do find that when people feel included, they're more engaged, they're more willing to put forward their opinions. Maybe that means taking a risk to do that, more likely to share their ideas. So we see relationships get stronger and conflicts are easier to navigate. You know, what it means is when we can widen our circle, we broaden how much trust we have, how much respect we have. And we do see that communities that widen the circle of inclusion usually see better mental health, better cooperation and better performances.
Many of us like to think I'm an inclusive person. What do we know about in-groups and out-groups and how they actually form in everyday life without even noticing?
That's the thing, isn't it? And I think many of us would hold that opinion of ourselves, that we are inclusive. And I think one of the things that I find useful when I'm talking to others about this is setting up those shortcuts of us and them is actually just something that humans do. If you think about it, even in our great state of Queensland, if we've got people from Rockhampton and people from Mackay, they might from time to time go, oh, and we see other towns that do it as well. It becomes an us or them, but then all of a sudden we're united when the footy comes around and we're all Queenslanders, and then oi, 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 we're all Australians all of a sudden. So it's like a little shortcut that we do to belong. And so sometimes I think what can happen is we may not be as aware of how we are including and by default excluding people.
You're hearing from Dr. Jo Lukens, author and psychology consultant. You sometimes use the term micro-exclusions. What does that look like in real life? The tiny behaviours that I guess quietly signal you're not really one of us.
Yeah, it's an interesting term, those micro-exclusions. Again, they're those little moments that you might look at it and go, oh, does that really matter? But collectively, these things do matter. Little by little, a little will always become a lot. I think that what's helpful for us is to be aware that there can be really little things that we might do. And that might be something like just talking over someone and someone doesn't get to contribute as much in a conversation. Or maybe you're at work and you always go to lunch with the same few people. I wonder, have you noticed, is there anyone who never gets invited to lunch? Or there might be jokes or acronyms that just by default people don't understand, so therefore they don't feel like they connect. So sometimes it's those little moments that if we think of those and think through the lens of we're less likely to do those things.
If those sorts of micro-exclusions are unintentional, how can we begin to notice our own patterns without feeling that shame or feeling defensive?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think it's a thing for us to practice. And I think the thing to remind ourselves of is if we do notice that we use terminology in a place that people don't understand, or we do tend to exclude people when we hadn't meant to, that's not about us being a good person or a bad person. It's just that we get into the habits of our relationships. So I think curiosity is a great way to approach this, asking yourself, what might I be missing? Who might not feel included in my sports team or in my workplace or in my community group or whatever it is? You know, just being open to going, let me try and look at this through fresh eyes. And when we can do that and notice those things where we can go, oh, hang on a sec, maybe I will do something a little bit differently.
What are some things that we can do to ensure people feel that they genuinely belong?
Yeah, so I think you can make active steps around it. So if it was in a workplace, I would always look, if we have meetings and discussions, there's the same old people that are always saying things. So you might say, well, look, for today's conversation, we want to make sure everyone can share a view, and we might rotate who speaks first. You might look out for people who generally tend to be quieter and maybe chat to them before the meeting and say, look, I'd really love to hear from you today. Making sure that we explain the context that we're in or the acronyms, those sorts of things. Even simple things like changing where you sit or who you say hello to first or who you check in with. All of those things can help us become more we than simply us.
Sometimes people will think of high-pressure environments and people might worry that focusing on inclusion will slow things down. What are the links between inclusion, trust, performance?
This might surprise people because I think people think we'll make better decisions faster if we don't engage so many people and just quickly get a few opinions and then form a decision. But in fact, we actually find the opposite of that. So what happens is that when we have a more inclusive environment, we do get a broader range of input, and even though that little piece might take a little bit longer, we may end up then making much better decisions. So that means we're going to make less mistakes, less rework. And so we often find that, and hopefully this makes sense and sounds like common sense to people, is that when we have more inclusive groups of people, then people tend to perform better, feel better. It helps our general wellbeing and so forth. So we certainly know that inclusion is absolutely a winner for everybody.
Psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens, thanks for your time this morning.
Always great to chat with you. Thanks, Susan. Bye.
Thank you. You are on ABC Radio Queensland.